Hey, my friend. Welcome to Creatives on Fire, the go-to podcast for content creators looking to grow their audience as well as their income. I'm so excited you're here. I'm your host, Melanie Ferguson. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Guess what? This week I have a special guest. This is going to be Justin Moore with Creator Wizard. He is super awesome. I've had the privilege to get to chat with him a little bit. He actually specializes in finding and negotiating dream brand partnerships for people like you. So tune in. Let's listen up and see what Justin has to say. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
What's going on, Melanie? So thrilled to be here.
I'm excited you're here too. All right. So tell us a little bit about this finding and negotiating dream brand partnerships, because a lot of us listening, I think maybe have dabbled with partnerships a little bit and either didn't have a lot of success right out of the gate because they didn't know, exactly how to approach brands and get kind of what they wanted from the collaboration, or they got burned and just decided not to have it be. But you are here to energize us. Tell us a little bit about how what you do helps us.
Yeah, so I think that most people's exposure to brand partnerships comes early on in the beginning. Let's say you have a blog and you're just doing your thing. It's really a kind of a creative passion, a hobby, this type of thing. Maybe you never really even thought that you could make money doing this type of thing. But then, I got an email in my inbox, an inquiry from a brand saying, hey, we love your blog. We love your social media presence. We would love to collaborate with you. And so most people's first reactions to that is usually freaking out because they're like, number one, it feels awesome because it's kind of validation, right? It's like, maybe you've been doing this a while. Your friends and family thinks you're kind of weird for what you're doing. And then, it feels like, wow, this brand, this legitimate brand is reaching out to me saying that we want to collaborate with me. That feels good. My wife and I definitely had that moment early on. But then the next emotion in the next split second is terror. It's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't even know how much to charge. Like, I've just never done this type of thing. And so brand partnerships, I think for a lot of people feel very reactive in the beginning. It's like, the brand is going to reach out to me. I just build my presence. I build my platforms and then brands will come kind of thing. And I think that, to your point, this process always feels like there's a power imbalance oftentimes, right? Where the brand, they're this big high and mighty brand. They're the ones who have the money, and basically whatever they ask for, I have to do if they're gracing me with this opportunity, right? And so the perspective that I take is that it's very much not a power imbalance. It actually should be a meeting of equals. Like, you have a platform, an influence, a connection that you've built up with your audience, with your readers, with your followers, that you oftentimes may have built over many years, actually, right? And so it's actually not fair for you to just get a free $30 bag of, or $10 bag of potato chips, for talking about the brand on your blog. That's actually not a fair thing. They should be compensating you for something like this. And so a lot of what I talk about is how do you go out there and maybe actively find your dream brand partners? You don't have to just wait for them to come to you. You can actually reach out to them, but there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different mistakes that creators make when they do try to reach out to brands, such as sliding in the DMs, such as emailing press@brand.com and, getting ghosted or rejected. And so this is really what I specialize in. How do you do this with intentionality?
I love, love, love that answer. A couple of quick things, rolling the tape back a little bit to having this audience that we want to be able to utilize as a bargaining tool, negotiating tool with brands. What is your best tip and advice for growing that in a way that a brand will view it as something valuable?
Well, this is honestly one of the primary things I talk about in my new book, Sponsor Magnet, is just there are things that you can do to be more attractive. I ran an influencer marketing agency for about 7 years. So the quick story is my wife and I have been on the internet for a long time. First YouTube channel, my wife started in 2009. I was helping behind the scenes. We started multiple channels together. We've done over 500 sponsorships, made over $5 million personally. So it's a big part of the way in which we have made money over the years. But then I decided, I was I should probably diversify. This is something you talk about a lot on your podcast, is I can't just rely on this. So started the agency and ultimately, paid out millions of dollars to other creators. And so this perspective where I've been on both sides of it, I think is a really important thing to understand, because when I ran the agency, I was in kind of the boardrooms with these big brands and these big advertisers where they weren't just saying, hey, April and Justin, we want to pay you $5K, $10K. We want to spend $1 million across 200 creators. What's the platform strategy? What types of creators should we be working with? What types of demographics? Like what you tell us, basically. This is what they were asking of us. And so it's just like a very different conversation. And so I was on the receiving end of a bunch of interaction with creators because we would reach out to them and say, hey, brand, food brand XYZ wants to partner with you. They're going to pay you this much money. Do you want to do it? And so, man, I can't even tell you so many. So one of the things that we had to do, to your question, was like when the brand would say, hey, like, give us like 30 people that you think we would be a good fit for this campaign. And so before we even reached out to the people, our agency would go and start kicking the tires digitally on prospective partners. So we would look at their blog, we would look at their social media, we would kind of do a vibe check to see like, is this, does it seem like a person that would be a good fit? And then we would essentially collect all those profiles and put them in a deck that we would then send to the brand for a soft vetting. So we would say, hey, we did some preliminary pulling of profiles. Of these 30, who do you think look good? And they say, okay, these 5 or these 10 look like a good fit. Go ahead and reach out to them. That's when we would reach out to them. So I think that people don't really quite understand the level of vetting that is being done on your profiles, on your blog before they ever reach out to you. And so a lot of what I talk about is like, make it very clear, make it abundantly clear that you do brand partnerships, that you have an email address in your, contact section on your blog or in your social media. It's like clear that we could reach out to you in an easy way. This is like a small in the weeds tactic, but like a lot of people don't realize, like on Instagram, for example, people have their email address in like the message me feature. But if you are on a desktop and looking at someone's Instagram profile, that button does not exist. So if you do not have your email address in plain text in your bio, that makes it very difficult for an agency like mine, the one I ran, to just copy and paste that and send you an email. Because again, my agency did not have access to the brand's Instagram handle because we weren't working directly for them. So there's all these really interesting kind of subtle tactics that are just like reduce the friction to make it easy for a brand to like reach out and collaborate with you. But honestly, we could do probably an entire 2-hour podcast about mistakes. But those are just a few.
I love it. And that is so true that we have to have in the back of our mind at all times, the big picture, the whole picture. And I think that you drilled it home so beautifully that, you are being vetted. Every brand has a Justin and April agency or a vetting process that they go through. And you can't just be good in one of your areas that you're out there, because if you put something out there, they're going to find it. So make sure that you are easy to reach, like Justin said. And so speaking of being out there, I know that there's different levels of content creators that brands are looking for. Can you speak to a little bit about the money? I know everyone's going to want to know about money. Like, what do I and I know it's a complete rabbit hole as to the different amounts for what you're offering, who the brand is and their budgets. But just in general, for a micro and a nano influencer, what would be those two brackets if it was a social media campaign?
All right. So I'm gonna probably blow some people's minds here because there's probably advice that I'm about to give you that you either may have never heard before or might freak out from you saying this. But if you are someone who has a media kit with pricing in it, you have to delete the pricing page immediately, because what you are doing is you are leading the witness. So let's say that you send this media kit to a brand who comes inbound asking for that. You may be the absolute perfect partner for them, and they may want to devote a huge chunk of their marketing budget to you. But because they open your media kit and they go to your pricing page and there's 5 packages, A, B, C, D, E, and it's like $100 to $1,000 as like the max range, they're like, well, not only were we willing to spend $10K on Melanie because she's the perfect fit, but the things that she's offering in these packages, we don't really even want. Actually, the thing we really wanted was like having Melanie come out to our conference and be in our booth, at this food trade show or whatever, because it's perfect, or the DIY trade show or whatever. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like she's into that kind of thing. So we're not going to even ask her. And so the analogy that I give is like when you give pricing, like a prefix boilerplate pricing to every brand, it'd be like if you go to the doctor's office, you have this ailment, you're ushered into the waiting room, right? You're sitting there, you've got this, you're just really nervous. Doctor walks in And before you even open your mouth to tell them about your symptoms, the doctor says, and writes down a little, prescription on a pad, hands it to you for a random prescription and walks out. You're like, hold on a second here. I didn't even tell the doctor what my symptoms were. And so this is the analogy that I like to give is like, you have to actually ask the brand, what is going on with them? What are their objectives? What would success look like for partnering with you? And they may tell you something very surprising. They may have come inbound and be like, how much for a sponsored blog post or how much for a sponsored Instagram post or whatever. And instead of just spitting back one number, you're saying, hey, totally happy to provide that information. But before I do that, I just want to learn a little bit more about like what are the KPIs? What are the key performance indicators that you're being measured upon for this campaign? What are your objectives for Q1 or Q2 of next year? No one is asking them these questions, Melanie. No other bloggers, no other influencers are asking them for this. And so they're going to be taken aback, first of all, and be like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And then, so you get all this data, and then here's the game-changing thing about pricing. At the very end of this conversation, you are going to say, this was so helpful. Thank you so much, brand XYZ. I'm going to go back, and I'd love to put together a proposal for how I think we could bring this partnership to life. Typically, what I do is I put together 3 to 4 different packages for what this campaign could look like. Do you have a sense of what I should set those 3 to 4 tiers at from a budget feasibility perspective? And then you shut up. You don't say anything. You lean into the silence. And one of 2 things is going to happen. 75% of the time, they are going to tell you a range. Shocking, I know, but I've done this across hundreds of negotiations. And they're going to give you some range. They're going to be like, I don't know, 100, 200, 300? Or 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, or maybe 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. And so this is very different than saying, what's your budget? Because if you say, what's your budget? They're going to say, you tell us, or we don't know, or we've never done this before, right? And if they tell you a budget, if they say, 10 grand, what are you going to come back at with your number? 10 grand. They have no wiggle room. They have no incentive to do that. But when they have a range, they now feel like there's a bit of wiggle room for them to potentially collaborate with you, depending on where their budget nets out with the other partners that they're collaborating with. So that's 75% of the time. And then 25% of the time, they're going to say, we don't know, you tell us, like we've never done this before. And so my advice in those scenarios is when you come back to them with your proposal, package 1 that you give them, which is, the lowest tier, has to be what I call your hell yeah number or heck yeah number. Pardon my French. It's meaning if they pick that package, you say, hell yeah, let's go. I'm excited to do this partnership. Not, man, I got to do this now. I was hoping they'd pick package 4, right? And so regardless of what happens, you've got a good framework here. And again, I've got a calculator in my program and I've got all sorts of, we can go really deep on this topic about pricing, but like, this is the simplest way to understand that you do not have standard pricing. It's about how does the brand value your contributions when they collaborate with you?
I love it. And listen, you guys, if you are listening right now, you need to actually hit stop and then back it up several sets of 15 seconds to get to the part where Justin tells you exactly what to say. And then he says to stop and don't say anything else, because that is like negotiation 101. And until you learn that, you will never get what you're looking for when it comes to brands. So Justin, I'm so excited. Tell me a little bit about maybe like the Cliff Notes version of what is a consistent framework that someone could take like me today and put into my weekly program to keep this water faucet going of opportunities.
Honestly, the biggest thing is creating a pitching habit, Melanie. Going back to what we talked about at the beginning about most bloggers, most creators think about this stuff as a reactive thing that they're just going to wait for brands to reach out to them. And one of the core tenets of my teachings basically is that you always have to be supplementing your inbound opportunities with outbound prospecting or pitching. It's kind of, I come from more of a corporate world, and there's this philosophy, there's this concept called a sales pipeline, right? Where it's like, you are filling up essentially you have leads into your pipeline that are going to be, you're going to be able to reap those seeds that you sowed. Maybe 6 months ago, you met a brand at a conference and then you had an ongoing conversation and you were emailing them once a month. And only 6 or 8 months later, do they have a campaign that's like super relevant for Melanie, right? And so I think a lot of people think that the goal of pitching a brand is to get a deal immediately. It's not. The goal is to establish the relationship. It's to get on their radar. It's to constantly nurture that opportunity so that when there is an opportunity that's perfect for you, they instantly think of you because they're top of mind. And so this idea about creating, let's say every once a week or once every 2 weeks, instead of creating content that day, that's going to be my day where I sit down at my computer. I'm following up with the brands that I reached back out 6 weeks ago. Hey, how's it going? Hey, here's this article I saw that's really relevant to you, or this other brand in a similar category to you is killing it with short form content. You should check this out. Hey, can I do a lunch and learn webinar over Zoom with your team? I've got some insights of like success I'm seeing with my blog right now, whatever. And so there's all these things that you can do to kind of nurture these relationships, but that is the game changer. That is, if I had to think of the one thing that has really allowed my wife and I to maintain this consistent income with sponsorships over the last 15 years, basically, it's that. It's nurturing these brands and realizing again, I like sharing these analogies from real life. Imagine you're a brick and mortar small business, right? You've got an ice cream shop, you've got a hair salon, you've got whatever. You cannot just sit and wait for people to walk by your storefront. Right? That is, you have to be advertising in the penny saver. You have to be doing Facebook ads where you're running ads 25-mile radius around your salon or whatever it is. So this is the analogy of like, you are a business owner, as a blogger, you as a creator, you have to be doing this outbound work, sales, essentially, to solicit business. And I think this is like a really important mindset shift.
I agree. And I think that, it starts with knowing who to reach out to and taking that time. And I think this is the perfect time of year to actually take account of your business and decide, listen, in 2025, do I want to add brand as one of my, little protectors to my business, my moat around my main thing?
Mm-hmm.
It's your blog, you want to have these different, feelers out. And if brand sponsorships is one of them, and I'm sure Justin has some great tips for how to do that.
I think the biggest mistake is just sitting and pontificating about the brands that I authentically love and use. Oh, I use this food brand, or I use this DIY paint brand, or whatever. Like these are the brands that I love. So I'm going to reach out and be like, hey, I've been using you for 3 years, 5 years. Let's collaborate. That's a terrible pitch for many reasons. First and foremost being that that's what everyone says. Yeah, I love your brand, right? And so a much more effective strategy to find these types of brand partners would be to involve your audience in this decision-making process. What do I mean by that? So there's this exercise that I encourage people to do called a psychographic survey, where you are actually sending out Google form, type form to your email list or something, or maybe you're doing this on Instagram stories or on your YouTube community tab, and you're saying, hey, I want to learn more about you. Of course, I can look at my analytics. I can see the demographics and the geographies and the ages and stuff, but I want to know what's keeping you up at night. What problems are you having? Are you married? Do you have kids? What types of jobs do you have? What types of brands and products and services are you using and loving right now? And so you may get a bunch of responses to that email, right? Melanie does this survey to her audience and she realizes, wow, I didn't realize that 40% of my audience homeschools their kids. I didn't realize that was, I'm making this up, obviously, right? But it's like, I didn't realize that was the case. You know what? Maybe I should go out there and forge a partnership with ABC Mouse or something which helps with reading. That actually might serve my audience really well. And yes, of course, that's not the square focus of my content, but again, it's in service of my audience. And I bet, I could probably think up a pretty creative way to integrate this brand, right? And so now the pitch shifts from I love you, please pay me brand to, hey, here's a bunch of people in my audience who have already expressed that they would love to hear about your brand. That is gold to a sponsor because that's what they care about at the end of the day. You are serving as the conduit to help them access a big pool of prospective customers.
All right, everybody, did you hear what Justin is putting down? He is telling us that as much as we hate to admit it, the brand is, we are not the asset. Our audience is. Now we grew the audience and we own the audience somewhat, but the audience is what we're selling, not ourselves. So that being said, tell us a little bit about what you have to offer, Justin. I know you have a new book called Sponsor Magnet. Tell us a little bit about everything.
Oh my gosh, I am so beyond stoked for this book to come out January 21st, 2025, depending on when you're listening. And basically, I've distilled everything. If this conversation tickled your brain at all, and they're thinking, you know what, maybe sponsorships could play a more significant role in my business, I have distilled everything that I know around partnerships into this book. That it has a very juicy subtitle, by the way. It's How to Attract, Price, and Execute Your Dream Brand Partnerships. So very juicy. I go through this entire system, essentially, which I call my sponsorship wheel, to help you turn these into like a recurring income stream that can be predictable. And I've got a bunch of stories from my wife and I over the years of all the horrific mistakes that we've made so that you can avoid those. And I really do fundamentally feel it's going to help people. So yeah, sponsormagnet.com. I've got some insane bonuses that I'm offering as part of the book as well. I have this sponsorship tracker template that I've created to help you manage a lot of these partnerships, your pitches and so on. I've got a bunch of checklist downloadables. I've got 15 different scripts that you can use when a brand says, hey, join our affiliate program. Instead of being like, oh, I'm only focusing on paid partnerships right now. No, you say this very specific thing instead. And so I've got a bunch of scripts. It's a very long list of bonuses, but yeah, if this is something that you're interested in, sponsormagnet.com.
Love it. And how can we maybe work with you?
Yeah, so I have basically two main ways. I've got a course called Brand Deal Wizard, which will help you take you basically zero to creating an entire system. And then I have a sponsorship coaching program called Wizards Guild, where essentially we work with people on an ongoing basis to help them with their negotiations. So maybe you are someone who has aspirations to turn this into something meaningful, or maybe you have a bunch of opportunities in your inbox and you need help navigating it. So the model that we run off of is very different from a manager. So it's basically it's a flat fee every month. So you keep 100% of everything you make, and you say, hey, how much should I charge for this? Or what should I put in this proposal? Or the brand asked me this and I don't know what to say in response. So we're essentially a coaches on speed dial for you. And I just feel like this model is way better aligned than being a manager, because we'll tell you, hey, don't take this deal. This deal sucks. You should not do this. Because again, we're not financially incentivized to like tell you to take the deal. So I'm pretty excited about this model, and I have several sponsorship coaches on my team helping facilitate that. So yeah, depending on how it can best serve you, those are some great ways as well.
I love your new model, because it's kind of like having an attorney on speed dial, like LegalZoom, all that, where you just pay and you use it when you need it most. And that is kind of what we need. So listen, Justin, your information has been invaluable. I absolutely am stoked about grabbing a copy of your book, Sponsor Magnet. And I hope everyone found some amazing nuggets in this for growing a brand partnership part of your business that you can be proud of. Justin, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Melanie. It was a blast.
Thank you so much, my friend, for tuning in each and every week. If you learned something new or were inspired from today's episode, I would be incredibly grateful if you would take a minute and just leave a review. Bonus points if you share this episode by screenshotting it and tagging me on social at Creatives on Fire Podcast. I'll share you in my stories when you do. In the meantime, keep rocking your business, and don't forget, no one else will ever be you. And that is your creative superpower.